Welcome to our channel Lightling Vision. Today Mother will continue with part 2 on the subject of pain, suffering and depression. So we've added depression because Mother talked about pain and suffering, and we just feel that it's very important to elaborate on the subject of depression. So thank you so much, Mother, for continuing on this very interesting subject.
Okay, thank you. If I take the subject of depression and go on trying to elaborate that subject, I can say that in the modern world, as Natalie already she just told me, there's a lot of depression, and she's right. The difficulty with depression is that although it is seen as a state of pain, basically the person has come too far away from his pain. You can say the avoiding pain has become a second nature in those individuals because they don't know what to do with the heart of their problem, the real problem, which is not a depression. The core or the main working point in their life is a big problem for them. They don't know how to face this, they don't know what to do with it, and then over the years, in being constantly confronted to this problem that they don't know how to tackle it, to handle it, you can say that a state of numbness is coming on. They bump into the problem all the time, but never completely. They don't go to the core of the problem, because that's too overwhelming, that's too dangerous on a psychological level for them. So they hit it all the time, but not deep enough. And then there's a numbness coming up in their lives that you can call depression. So you might say the person somehow avoided the pain, the real pain that they will meet in the core of the problem. They could not prevent themselves from hitting the problem because it is still in their lives, the situation that's painful. But they try to avoid the pain because somehow they don't know what to do with it. Whereas if one day they hit the core of the problem and where the pain is very sensitive, where they cannot escape from it, where they feel it, then they can come out of the depression. You also can say that, well, there are many factors around depression, but you can also say there's a kind of non-acceptance of a factor in their lives, of a situation, a person, a problem they're dealing with. That can be a physical infirmity, that can be many, many things. But there is being not able to deal with it in a constructive way. So the main problem in their lives, the main challenge, because life from a spiritual point of view can be seen as a challenge, and difficulties are part of that challenge of life. They cannot deal with the difficulty, they cannot give it a place in their lives, they cannot transform it. There's something that doesn't work. Now, the real difficulty is if they should have the courage to go into the pain, and they can say in the midst of that pain yes to the fact that that problem is in their lives, to bring them further, to help them to progress in understanding, in insight, in consciousness. If they can say yes, they will find a solution. Now we cannot judge those persons. I do not give this explanation for us to say, well, if you see a depressed person, she can't handle the things in her life. No, that doesn't work like that. You cannot know how a person lives his or her situation. You would have no problem with her situation, but that person does. We cannot judge that. We can only try eventually to help by compassion, the right form of compassion, sympathy, understanding from the heart, or trying, if the situation is there, to give an opening for the person to find a solution. But even that is not easy, because it's not easy to understand the situation of somebody else. So we should take care of judging too quickly and giving solutions that are no solution for the person. But what is the main point is that pain has to do with life. That's the difficulty. And for our intellectual understanding of our existence, or of existence in a more broader way, you can say that pain for our intellect is not acceptable. Whereas from a spiritual point of view, unfortunately, pain has to do with something that's alive. As you can also say, as long as there's pain, there's hope, and things can progress. If there's no pain anymore and things get numb, or even life goes out of that part of the body. When you don't feel pain anymore in your body, then it might be, if something is healing, then everything is okay. But it also might be a bad sign, because life is withdrawing from that part of your body. And that's not a good sign. So from a positive point of view, a spiritual point of view, pain has to do with the presence of the life force, psychologically or physically. And as long as the life force is present, there is a possibility for growth, continuity, and a constructive, creative, positive outcome. So you might say what we see nowadays in this world is a collective situation where many people have become numb because difficulties are immediately attacked by painkillers. In many ways, you have all kinds of painkillers. It can be medication, it can be distraction, it can be, as I already told, drugs, whatever you want. But if you use those things in your life to get out of the pain and the problems, then immediately, on long terms, a depression will await you. And it will start with having no taste of life anymore. So before you get the depression, you have already that things do not have no taste anymore. The joy of life, the spirit is going out of your life. And then little by little, you sink in a depression, and that depression will go on until you come at a certain moment at a dead point. And in the depth of the depression, at the point of death, you might say, there you have you might say, your last chance to say, and now I will react. I can't accept this situation. And then you will see a last glimpse of the life force that tries to come up again, to survive, and pushes you in the direction of the main problem and the pain that goes together with that. So at the depth of your depression, if you can take up all the forces you still have, then you will immediately feel pain coming up, because life is coming in again.
So it sounds a little bit like a vicious circle. Like if you're in depression, then you need to act. You need to realize, and then you need to see what the problem is. So when you're in depression, if you're numb, how can you find this strength to see it in front of you and to act on it?
That's the only factor that's unknown. I mean to say, you never know what an individual will do when the deepest point has been reached, has been attained. You don't know. No. That's the mystery of man. But as we can, well, it depends on if you can accept that. If we can accept the idea of reincarnation, even if a person commits suicide, out of the body, we say death, but out of the body, this coming back to the reality of his soul, this person will see that the only problem was not being able to face the difficulty in his life. So he will suffer from that, from this weakness that he has had to not be able to face the challenge. And this suffering will create an impulsion to come back in a new life and do it differently. So whatever happens, there is never a problem in an absolute way. You can only say you better solve the problem now than in the next life, because it will very often be a bit more difficult. But as you have suffered from your weakness in this life and not being able to solve your problems, this suffering that you live out of the body on the other side, creating your new life, or waiting for your new life, this suffering will strengthen you. So in your next life, when you have to face the same problem in another way, and often it will be a bit more difficult, you have, in the meantime, you have obtained strength through suffering on the other side. But, and that's perhaps an interesting subject for the next video, suffering here on earth or suffering on the other side is different. And you better suffer here. That's all I can say. Mm-hmm. Without making a question of pride of it, saying proudly, yes, I know how to suffer, see, look. No, that's not about suffering. I mean, as I already told, suffering is something that that comes up naturally at one moment or another in your life, in one way or another. And if you can meet it in the best way, then you will make something wonderful out of it. If you can't meet it, for many reasons, the best thing is still to try to find a way to meet it, because if you draw back, you go in weakness. And that can be a moment in your life, but it should not become a permanent state. That is absolutely not the most ideal situation.
Okay, thank you, Mother. So every obstacles we have in life is something that we need to figure out and face.
Yes, because it's like bodybuilding. What we do on the physical level with bodybuilding is on the psychological level, having the courage and little by little obtaining the strength to face challenges, all kinds of challenges and difficulties in our lives that have a psychological impact on us.
Thank you, Mother. That's extremely useful tools for us to deal with our suffering and pain. So thank you. And so don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next topic. And please write us your comments. We'd really like to hear from you. And we will see you at the next video. So stay safe and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Sometimes you walk on a narrow path. You look around you, no one to see. Sometimes you walk on a road so small. You look around you, there's just a view. And all your trials, they seem to weigh upon your shoulders so heavily. What does it mean? And all your efforts to make it better do not work in spite of your goodwill. What can it be? Don't be afraid if the darkness comes. It's the night that precedes the day's return. Don't be afraid if the darkness comes. It's the night that precedes the day's return. Can you accept that there is a sense behind your struggles? Don't try to flee. There is a power that guides your path. It knows the outcome undoubtedly. Don't look around you. Don't seek the answers where they can't be found. They aren't there. It cannot be. It's by your prayers in which you ask for truth and face yourself sincerely. You will find peace. The darkness comes. It's the night that precedes the day's return. Don't be afraid if the darkness comes. It's the night that precedes the day's return. Don't be afraid. It's the night that precedes the day's return. Oh, don't be afraid if the darkness comes. It's the night that precedes light's victory.